Welcome to Chapter 9, the landowner-tenant relationship, which naturally follows your joint tenancy and tenancy in common. So now what happens if I'm a landlord or I'm a... So in this chapter, you're just going to refresh your memory on the types of common law tenancies. You're going to discuss the appropriate provisions for lease agreements and then the rights and responsibilities of parties in the lease agreement. You're gonna just you probably are familiar with these things. You're just gonna refresh your memory and go, oh yeah, I remember that now. It'll all come back to you when you read. But the temporary possession leases, you're gonna talk about 4 years, where the lease is for a specific period. Let's say I rent an apartment for 1 year. At will, these are by agreement. Either side can terminate without damages. This at-will agreement. There's periodic, where they're month to month, where I don't have a lease agreement. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be here. I'll just keep paying you every month and until I don't pay you anymore, then I got to move out. And then at sufferances. And these are where the lease has ended and the tenant remains. The terms of a lease agreement are going to include things such as deposits, security deposit, cleaning deposit. If there are any prepaid rent, sometimes you pay first and last months up front. Amount of rent and rent control, meaning the lease agreement needs to state how much you're going to pay in rent and when that can go up and when it can't go up. So, for example, it might say, you know, this is the rent for 1 year period. It can be reviewed at the end of the year, or it could say it can go up a certain percent every year. And then any other lease terms, anything about attorney fees, should attorneys be involved, rules and regulations under the lease, maybe no pets allowed, no smoking allowed, and anything to do with liquidated damages, should there be any. So all these things need to be stated in a lease agreement. Habitability, these are statutes in most states, and they some examples might be warranty of habitability could be that you have to have the residence has to have adequate temperature in cold weather, livable conditions in hot weather. It's got to have running water. It's got to have hot and cold water. It's got to be free of bugs. It's got to comply with codes. It can't have mold. So these are habitability issues. Terms of your lease agreement should also include amount of rent, but don't forget the late fee, rent increases, rent control. Maybe there. I had a place once where I had to pay so much a month for my pet. And then options to renew need to be stated. And what happens after termination, is there periodic tendency? So in periodic tendency, you're going to have a termination. What happens after? What happens with holdover? So the period's terminated and you're still there. And what are the termination notices? You know, a lot of times we say the landlord wants 30 days notice. Landlord has rights as well that you're going to read about in this chapter. Assignments and subleases. A lot of landlords don't allow subleases, but if they do, what are the rights and responsibilities of those? And then you're going to read about short-term leases such as Airbnb and what happens on those. What are the rules? Rights and responsibilities of parties to a lease agreement. These lease agreements need to state if there's any maintenance. How's that handled? I know a lot of times in single-family residence, we'll write in on the lease that the tenant has to mow the grass. Also, in some of our hotter areas, which I guess pretty much is all of Texas, It's not uncommon that we would write in that the grass has to be watered twice a week, and so that would be considered a maintenance. Uh, Responsibilities of landlords to comply with the Americans with Disability Act. So accommodation of service animals. I know I had that come up. I've had that come up several times in my career about where the landlord's adamant about no pets, but you have someone that has a legal service animal. So that does, and then but also there has to be the complying with the uh, restrictions and the covenants of the neighborhood as well. Rights and responsibilities of tenants are payment of rent, compliance with the rules and regulations, what the landlord can do for non-payment, what the landlord can do about damaged property. So when you're done reading this chapter, you should be able to discuss competently our 3 learning objectives. And as always, if there is something that you need clarity on, please reach out to me and let's get that taken care of. And I wish you luck on your unit exam.